Why has Trump denied disaster relief for various states, and is this cruel and unusual punishment? President Donald Trump's administration has recently denied federal disaster relief to several states following major natural disasters, including tornadoes in Arkansas, flooding in West Virginia, and windstorms in Washington. This marks a significant shift from previous federal disaster response practices. Key reasons for denials: policy shift towards state responsibility. Trump has issued executive orders aimed at shifting the primary responsibility for disaster response and recovery from the federal government to individual states. He and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem have also signaled intentions to dismantle FEMA, the federal agency that traditionally coordinates and funds disaster relief. Trump has argued that competent state governments should handle disaster response, calling FEMA costly and largely ineffective. Restricting federal aid to only the most severe disasters. The Trump administration has indicated that federal aid will now be concentrated on only the most catastrophic events, such as massive hurricanes, devastating earthquakes, or large-scale attacks on the homeland. For other disasters, states are expected to manage recovery using their own resources and preparedness measures. Imposing new conditions or criteria. In some cases, Trump has attached unrelated policy demands to disaster relief, such as requiring California to change its voting laws or water regulations before receiving federal aid for wildfire recovery. Legal experts argue that such conditions are likely unconstitutional, as federal disaster aid is not meant to be used as leverage for unrelated policy changes. Discretion in disaster declarations. The president has broad discretion to approve or deny requests for federal disaster assistance, even when states meet established criteria. State officials have expressed frustration and confusion over the lack of clear guidance or shifting standards for aid approval. Is this cruel and unusual punishment? Legal and ethical considerations. Cruel and unusual punishment definition. The term cruel and unusual punishment is a constitutional standard found in the Eighth Amendment, primarily applied to criminal justice and the treatment of individuals by the state. Denial of disaster relief, while potentially harmful and disruptive, does not legally constitute cruel and unusual punishment in the constitutional sense. Criticism of policy as harmful. Many critics and legal analysts have described Trump's disaster relief policies as harmful, arbitrary, and potentially unconstitutional, especially when federal aid is withheld to coerce unrelated policy changes or when states are left without resources to recover from major disasters. Experts note that such actions undermine the federal government's traditional role in supporting Americans during emergencies and may violate principles of federalism and the intent of disaster relief laws. Unprecedented nature and public backlash. Emergency management officials and state leaders have called these denials very unusual and noted that they disrupt the long-standing expectation that the federal government will assist in large-scale disasters. The lack of federal support has left vulnerable communities dependent on limited state resources and volunteer organizations. Summary table. Trump's disaster relief policy vs. previous practice. Trump's denial of disaster relief is driven by a policy shift towards state self-reliance, a desire to reduce federal spending, and, in some cases, the imposition of unrelated political conditions. While these actions have been widely criticized as harmful and potentially unconstitutional, they do not meet the legal definition of cruel and unusual punishment. Nonetheless, the denials have left many disaster survivors without adequate support and have sparked significant controversy over the federal government's role in disaster response.